Welcome back to my channel, DebtFree CF. This is my check-in for May 2018. If you haven't been to my channel before, I'm working off of a single income split rent with a roommate that's also split utilities and covers half the costs of groceries and pet expenses because we live in the same place, so it's easier to just divvy that up half and half. I'm looking at what I've spent so far in the month, and I've got an estimated column as well as an actual column where I have a rough idea of what I should be bringing in a month, and then a running tally in the actual column so that the closer I get to the end of the month, the more accurate seeing where my true numbers fall. Now, the grocery budget is a little bit lower than it has been in the past, only because one meal a workday is provided to both my roommate and I based off of what our company policies are. And I'm hoping that that will lower what we spend in a month. Now, I'm also traveling 2 of the weekends of this month, so I won't be home quite as much. And then there'll be a slightly separate budget for the holiday weekend at the end of the month where we're traveling together and we'll probably need some other supplies related to camping. So groceries hopefully will fall under that. I've put in what some of the different expenditures were day by day, and when I turn it into a formula by putting equal at the beginning of it and a plus sign in between each entry and hit enter, it automatically calculates. So since we're about halfway through the month and we're at about halfway through the allotted amount, I think we will probably be pretty close. In any of the categories, this is almost always the category I go over, and that's mostly because I've got leniency, so I'm not too strict on the exact numbers. And it kind of seems like each month there's some sort of excuse, like I wasn't planning on making a Costco run that particular month, or we had a special event, or somebody's birthday or something, and we went out that we weren't expecting. So it seems like we always go over in this one. I don't use cash envelopes because we share a debit card for a shared account in which we both submit the same amount for groceries and some of the pet expenses, some of the different things that we split in terms of expenses. So with that, I don't see the point in a cash system, but I am checking it on a weekly basis. And then I did make a single purchase of gas. I don't anticipate making another purchase, and it was pretty close to 30. I believe I was filling up a vehicle that isn't my personal vehicle. It's one that I share with my roommate sometimes, and so I wasn't really sure what a full tank was on that. And then of course gas prices as we're approaching summer, and since California made a law change with some of the taxes, gas is getting more expensive, so I'll have to probably up my estimates by about $5 every time from now on. Rent was paid, cell phone and utilities were paid. Because we're going to be out of town in May at the end of the month, we have some dog sitting, and then I prepaid because I needed to book far in advance in order to secure a spot for over the 4th of July when we're traveling. So that's where this huge number of pet expense came from, which means it's also going to technically dwindle the sinking funds, but because I was planning this ahead of time, like right at the end of April, beginning of May, I actually cash flowed it between my roommate and I, so I'm not going to make any adjustment over in the sinking fund. This was all cash flowed this month. The health insurance stuff has been paid. Car insurance is in the sinking fund, which will be paid out in June. And then there were 2 expenses kind of in the miscellaneous category. One was a purchase, and then the other was pulling out cash to get a item off of Nextdoor, which if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of similar to Craigslist, but it's even more directly linked to your neighborhood, and it's kind of like a neighborhood watch and a community forum for interacting with local law enforcement and city boards and stuff. If you're not part of it, I suggest you look into it. You can be as free sharing of information or as private as you want to be. One benefit that I found of it is you can list what kind of animals you have, and I would, of course, if you don't have your dog licensed and your city requires a dog license, don't put your animal on Nextdoor without a license. But the benefit of putting what kind of animal belongs where is if your animal gets out, runs away, people in your neighborhood might recognize your animal based off of you having listed it on Nextdoor. So just a side note, I was making a purchase and then I was traveling, so I wanted to just have some cash on hand in case I needed to, tip anybody or grab a bite to eat or something in transit. So I'll probably have some extra cash left over, but because I'm not doing hard cash envelopes, sometimes I don't worry about if there's $15 or less of extra and then it just gets used up later on. And I usually make a note that I had cash on hand. Not quite sure what this one-time row was used for, so I'm just going to skip that for now. And then I did make a contribution to my Roth IRA for 2018. So if you track over on the right-hand side in the retirement section, I've already now contributed a little over half of my total Roth IRA outside of work. These two columns kind of work off of my estimated amount of what I should be putting into retirement at 15% if I'm trying to make that minimum payment, and then so far this month what that would look like based off of some of the checks that I've gotten. And I actually probably always contribute more than 15% because I get up to 6% withheld from any paycheck, and that's matched in a 401k by my employer. And I do that as kind of a not counted in the 15% of retirement at any given time. If we do a quick calculation, in the US, if you are under whatever it is, 55, I think, then you can contribute to your Roth IRA up to $5,500 in a year. So if you say that that amount is equal to 15% of your income, so $5,500 is the amount that you're allowed to contribute, then you could do a calculation of, well, how much income must I make in order for $5,500 to be 15% of that, which if we calculate it means that you're going to have this number 5,500. So let's do it in two parts so that you can see. I'm using the equal sign to tell the spreadsheet that I'm making a formula. I'm going to reference this box and then divide it by 15%. 15%. And this means that after taxes, to have 5,500 be 15% exactly, you need an income of about $37,000. Now, if you are contributing a little bit more than that, you can't put it all into a Roth IRA because you can only max out at 5,500, meaning that you would have to invest in other things, whether that's stocks or that's in a traditional Roth, or you add extra to a 401k that your company offers, whatever it is. Those are some of the options. But just as a side note, I'm doing the 15% into retirement out of my post taxes, and so your income post taxes would want to be at least 37,000 roughly to make that number work. But anyway, moving that, and then in terms of other things that I have planned for, I do know that probably, I do know that I'm going to have a few more things in the miscellaneous / one-time portion of this month for the holiday weekend at the end of the month. But anyway, just a quick check-in. I'd like to hear from you where you are in your check-ins, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them at the bottom. Otherwise, come back at the end of the month to see how I've wrapped it up. Thanks for watching.